I'm wrestling, do not weep for me. Celebrate what I am. Celebrate what I have been. Celebrate what I represent. And celebrate the many ways I have impacted your life. I will survive this test as I have survived others. I am forever etched into the very fiber of all mankind. The world needs me. Time is on my side. History guarantees me. I am wrestling. Do not wait for me.
What's up, everybody? This is Ben Askren. I'm with Tommy Rowlands. This is the T-Rowan Funky Show, episode number 15, sponsored as always by Defend Soap, defend what you've built. I have seen them everywhere lately, just everywhere. And we have a special guest today, Jordan Burroughs, who will be calling in just a few minutes. But Tommy, you got anything for me before we get him on?
No, man. Good weekend of wrestling. I'm sure we'll talk about plenty of it after Jordan hops off the call. But we're happy to have him on the call. And
I got so much to talk.
We got plenty to talk about tonight.
There's been obviously all these matches, but then there's been a lot of this drama around the NWC Duels event too, which I tried to listen to every other podcast. I listened to Jason Bryant's. I listened to the Flow ones. What I tried to do, Tommy, was gather all the facts. Because, there's nothing more I can't stand than someone giving a very strong opinion when they don't have all the facts. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure I don't have all of them, but I tried to gather as many as that were available to me.
You try to be as informed as you can, is what you're telling me.
Tried to be as informed as I can. And I think, this NWCA situation, which we're going to talk about, is it's super interesting. And I got a lot of opinions on it. But I don't want to get too deep into that conversation and then have Jordan come on and have to stop it and then restart it in a couple minutes.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, but I tell you what, I don't think there's been this much, at least political buzz around the national duels in quite some time. So, we will dive deep into it after we have Jordan on the call, but there's plenty of ways to look at this.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so there has been a lot of hype, a lot of talk, which I guess is that's exactly what you want anyways. So, there's also international wrestling this weekend, which that's what Jordan really wants to talk about. He's an international wrestling guy. The man who beat you up, Kyle Snyder.
What are we now? 13 for 15 or 12 for 15 or something?
Well, you know what? Actually, someone had just reminded me that I hadn't brought this up recently enough, so they said you have to bring it up again with Tommy.
I can't. I'm never gonna. If I ever go back in there to try to redeem myself in some way, shape, or form, I'm not letting you know about it. That's for sure.
But anyways, he wrestled Gatsalov, which is interesting because Gatsalov is a legend of the sport, someone who won titles at an early age, kind of like Kyle did. So I thought that was an interesting match because it's kind of like old guard versus new guard type of match. There's not a lot of people in the world of freestyle wrestling who are more credentialed than Gatsalov.
No.
You can probably count him on your hand.
Well, is he 5-time gold medalist?
I want to say more than that. Hold on. I'm going to Wikipedia him. But I want to say it's more than 5. I want to say maybe 5 worlds and 2 Olympics also.
No, he's won Olympics. I know that.
Okay, so he's got, his name is, have you seen his first name? Kajimurat.
Kajimurat Gatsalov.
Wow, and he was even the flag bearer for them at the Olympics last time.
You want to know a funny story? I wrestled Gatsalov.
Okay, wait. Let me total this up for you. He has 1 Olympics, 3, 4, 5 worlds. What's up?
We got a little bit of an issue here. This is kind of embarrassing, but Burroughs says he needs Skype credit to call us.
No, tell him to call on his cell phone.
Oh, call from his cell phone?
Yeah, call from his cell phone.
Okay, my bad. We got him.
Yeah, no worries. We had that problem last week. But yeah, just tell him to call from his cell phone. So Gatsalov's got 1 Olympic gold, 5 world golds, a world silver, and a world bronze. 8-time world medalist, and 3 European championships. So, that's up there with the best ever. And Kyle got to wrestle him. It came up short this time, but obviously it probably won't be the last time that Kyle gets a shot at him. Definitely not this year or ever.
Well, yeah, he's I personally think Snyder's doing a great job this offseason. Yeah, he's not winning tournaments, but he's hanging up medals in every event he goes in Eastern Europe. And if you follow international wrestling close enough, you'll realize that that's pretty unique.
Very unique. And you know who another one is? Another Buckeye, Logan Stieber. Well, there's Jordan right there. So let's just get into what he wants to get into.
Got it.
Hello, what's up, Jordan?
What's going on, my man?
Oh, nothing. Tommy and I we just got talking about international wrestling because we know what you want to talk about.
Awesome. Good.
Hey, Jordan, what's up? Thanks for coming on today, brother.
I mean, no problem, man. How you doing, bro?
I'm hanging in. We were actually just talking about the Minsk Belarus tournament, the Medved tournament. I think you've been there before. And we were going through, actually, the two medalists, or at least we were talking about the two guys, our Buckeyes. I had to bring that up. But Mr. Snyder and Mr. Stieber. Ben, go ahead and you know what? If
I want to get started.
Yeah, let's go.
So
let's
excited.
talk about
Hey, Tommy, you know how I always give you shit about the Kyle Snyder thing?
Yeah.
All the time. Well, Jordan actually provided me with ammunition. The guy that Jordan did this to, I've been giving him crap now for a decade. So don't think I'm done with the Snyder thing. So Jordan, actually, one of the topics I wanted to bring up with you is, and I'll start it off by, the guy works for me. His name is Josh Wagner. He was ranked 6th in the country. And this skinny punk freshman comes out and double legs him 7 times. And we're like, and literally we're thinking this guy's going to All-American. We're in the national title hunt, and he gets double legs 7 times. And we're like, what the hell's going on over there? I mean, like, I'm legitimately pissed. This guy's supposed to All-American here in 2 weeks, and he's getting double legs 7 times by some skinny freshman. So,
that was great. That was great. Great times, man. I remember that match vividly. Actually, Josh Wagner. I wrestled him multiple times after that.
Yeah, he somewhat kept it a little closer after that, but that was brutal. So I always give him crap about getting double legs 7 times by a freshman. But I've got to watch you very closely since you were a freshman in college. Since that match, I've been following you. And one of the things I said to Tommy that I got to ask you this because I've never really had an in-depth conversation with you, but I have never seen someone over such an extended period of time continually improve at such a rate. I mean, from that year to the next year to the next year to the next year, all the way through all these world championships, you've been getting better and better and better every year, and it's somewhat impossible, but you've done it. So give us the secret, man. Give us the gold. What is it? What's the trick?
That's an interesting question, dude. There's a lot of people ask me that. Like, how do you become who you are in such a short period of time? I just think back to my freshman year. Like I was 16 and 13, my true freshman year at college. I went 1 and 2 at NCAAs, finished 3rd in the Big 12.
But then you're kind of you were really, really tough that year. But you know what? I guess you were definitely coming around. I remember you got a bad draw too because you lost to Matt Storniolo, who's the number 2 guy in the country in the wrestlebacks, which was a tough draw for you.
I had the number 1 seed, so I wrestled the number 1 and number 2 seed within 3 matches.
Oh my gosh!
I think it's the worst draw in history. I'd be interested to see if anyone could find a worse draw. Like, has that ever happened to anyone?
Did you have the 1 seed? Did you have the 1 seed on the front side, Jordan?
Yeah, I had Dustin Slater my very first match on the front side. He was the number 1 seed international champion. Got beat 3-2, fell back, beat a guy from Colombia. I think it was Matt Dunn from Colombia, the wrestlebacks in the second round. Matt Storniolo had got upset in the first round by Matt Coughlin from Indiana, so he dropped down. I wrestled Storniolo and lost in overtime.
Oh, my gosh.
So 3 matches, number 1 and number 2 seed at 149, and I was done ski. I was going home.
And that was your true freshman year?
That was my true freshman year, yes, sir.
Wow.
Okay. And then you come back as a true sophomore, or did you redshirt after that?
No, I came back as a true sophomore, and I went 34-6 my sophomore year. I went 5-1 at NCAAs and finished 3rd in the nation. Toughest weight class in history. 49. Yeah, a lot of studs.
Let me go through them. I got them for you. You got Metcalf, you got Bubba Jenkins, Darian Caldwell, yourself, Dustin Schlater.
Was Palmer in there?
Lance Palmer.
Chirella.
Gillespie.
Yep.
I think so.
No, Gillespie wasn't in there.
Oh, he went up by then. He went up.
Okay.
J.P. O'Connor and Darian Caldwell.
Oh, God.
Oh, my gosh.
So you've got countless national championships. You've got a couple runner-up finishes. You've got, obviously, world teams from Metcalf and myself. You've got Olympic gold medals, world championships.
Schlater was on a world team, too.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, and Slater was on a world team. So you got 3 world team members there: Slater, Burroughs, Metcalf. Metcalf was a runner-up. Palmer was a runner-up.
I'm sold.
National champion. Slater was a national champion. Metcalf was a two-timer. Caldwell was a national champion. Bubba was a national champion. J.P. O'Connor was a national champion. Like, it's the best. You can't find anything better than that. Like, it's impossible.
That was
so to answer the question, Jordan. I mean, it is interesting because you over the past, I don't know, maybe it's 8 or 9 years, you literally vastly improve every year. So what is it that's inside that's keeping you going like that?
I'd say a massive competitive spirit. I think it was really trial by fire for me as a young man. I never was catered to. I never was nurtured. I just was thrown to the wolves. And so I had to really progress or get eaten. It was like you throw a kid into the deep end. It's either you drown or you learn to swim. And so I just remember, that freshman year going through the tough trials, wrestling the number 1 and number 2 seeds at the NCAA tournament. My sophomore year being in one of the toughest weight classes in the country. My junior year at 157, I beat 3 national champions in the same season. My senior year, I came back and I tore my LCL and PCL, so I had to sit out the rest of the season. But then that gave me time to recollect and refocus and regroup and prepare for freestyle and go up a weight class. And so then it was like, all right, I got bigger fish to fry. Not only do I want to win the NCAA championship, I want to be the best in the world. And so how do I reach that point? I'm training beyond what anyone in the wrestling room is doing and what my opponents are doing. For me, it was always about being the best man in every tournament, not just standing on top of the podium. And that kind of translated to a lot of success. And so now I'm at this point where I've won everything, I've done it all, but if I'm still in it, then I want to win it. If I'm going to put my shoes on and step out on the mat to compete, I want to be the best that's in that wrestling room or in that facility, in that venue, in that arena. And that drives me, dude.
That's really awesome, man.
So
let me say something.
Okay.
But
I got so many questions, Tommy.
I know. We want to maximize our time here, but and I gotta say, Jordan, I consider myself to be a supremely competitive person, and still am to this day. Even though I'm not a competitive wrestler, I just channel that energy in other aspects of my life. But I do think that it's really unique because it's hard to imagine maintaining that competitive fire as a world. If you were able to reach the pinnacle of the sport, which is World and Olympic Championship, it's unique to me. I remember when you came out, you graduated in 2011. I was kind of in the finishing months or years of my career, and your Twitter account was all I see is gold. And I remember thinking, and I wasn't judging by any stretch, but I remember thinking, does this guy even know what he's saying when he says all he sees is gold? Because it's so freaking hard. There's been a lot of two-time NCAA champs with the Hodge Trophy that weren't able to.
Damn it, Tommy! Stop
do what you've done. I didn't even mean. You know what, Ben? That wasn't even personal. But I guess you're good evidence. I'm evidence.
It's hard to win a world title.
Jordan, obviously you were serious about what your view or your vision of what you wanted for yourself, but I do think it's rare air to win the Worlds and Olympics and still maintain that fire. And I guess I got to compliment you, but it's unique. I think people probably saw it in John Smith. Cale, he won and then had to back out. So, do you think that there's something? What do you think that there might be different than maybe myself or even Ben? I mean, it's you win the World Olympics, and then you're still hanging up titles. You still seem supremely motivated, and I just think that's pretty rare. I was hoping maybe you could give some answer that I've never heard before, instead of saying I want to hang up another one. But it must just be that fun, huh?
Absolutely. I do enjoy it. I do enjoy what I do, and I feel the pressure and the expectation of the world rest upon my shoulders. But it's much bigger than me. Like I talk about all the time, this is much bigger than me. When I step out there and compete, I give my family, my friends, my supporters an opportunity to come along for this journey. They live vicariously through me, but I receive a lot of the blessings because of it. And so for me, it's an awesome opportunity. I've been blessed with a tremendous skill set, but the work ethic has come through just years of hard work, sharpening skills, and having a lot of people around me who believe in me and encourage me. And so someone tells me, listen, Burroughs, I'm telling you, you're capable of being the best wrestler in American history, the best guy to ever strap on a pair of shoes and wear stars and stripes on his back. And I believed it. I truly believed it. Before I even had the opportunity to do these things, I believed that it was possible for me to win. I believed that I hadn't won because I just hadn't wrestled these guys yet.
Do you feel more pressure now or less than maybe in 2011 and 12? Like, is there a difference?
In 2011, it was nothing. It meant nothing to me in 2011. I had no perspective because I had never done it. I was just out there wrestling folk style with freestyle rules. I didn't really know much about the sport. I didn't know who the stars were. I didn't know what to expect, what was coming my way. So I was just out there wrestling. But now there's a ton of pressure, dude, and I feel it. I feel tremendous pressure, but I'm able to separate my emotions from my performance. I think the key to my wrestling success is me being able to separate my feelings from the way I perform. Just having a high ability to forget, never getting rattled, never getting overly emotional, never allowing the pressure and the circumstance to overwhelm me. And that's really been helpful for me in my career. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough sometimes because I know regardless of how I perform it, it's hard to outdo what I've already done. And so if I don't tech fall or pin every guy, people are like, well, what's wrong with Burroughs? And God forbid I lose, then I'm definitely in deep trouble. So,
right.
You know, it's a hard position to be in, but with that pressure and that expectation, you put that hunger and that desire to never be embarrassed.
Right.
Or to never be shown up, to never allow another man to impose his will upon you. And so those dudes can only do to you what you allow them to do. And there's only room for one of us on top of the podium. So it's got to be me.
That's awesome.
So this is kind of a controversial one for you. I'm really interested to hear what you're going to answer. I wrote an article after the Worlds this year, and it applies to you because it said I said that a lot of American wrestlers are having the most success directly after their career. Meaning, like you won a title within 4 months of graduating college, and obviously you can't place higher than that. But then there's been other guys who have not had success, and then they don't get any better. There's been guys like Jake Herbert, who takes second, and then never improves on his finish from there. And so, to me, obviously, I know folk style wrestling doesn't make you a better freestyle wrestler, but I think there is either something about being young or something about that college grind that kind of makes you sharp, or the other is there's some type of failure in the American system to improve the wrestlers as they get older, and I don't want to say that about the American system because I don't know what it is. Well, what's your take on that?
Of the last two. I think it's a combination of the last two things that you said. It's the grind of the college season, then it's not a failure on the American behalf because they're doing a good job of supporting athletes, but we're not doing a good job at necessarily improving athletes. So, we really live in a broken system in terms of our freestyle system. And I don't know if you guys agree with me, but just being a freestyle wrestler, there's no structure for us. Most guys are just in an NWT or an RTC, a regional training center at a particular college, probably their alma mater, because they feel such a significant tie to that particular program. And it's difficult because we're just extensions of the college program. Like here at Nebraska, we've got 5 freestyle guys, but we got 35 folk style guys. Mm-hmm. So Coach Manning and Coach Snyder, as much as they love me and care about my career and my progression, their job is to win NCAA titles and Big Ten titles and bring home national championships. And so it's difficult because we don't have the structure that the college team have. We aren't the main focus throughout the year. Just even for this next month, in preparation for the Olympic trials, our college folk style team and our college coaches are going to be preparing for the Big Tens and the NCAA championships. So that's essentially a month before our biggest tournament of the year outside the Olympic Games. We are going to be stymied by our coaches being away for 2 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
That's a difficult position to be in, dude. And until we can get a more centralized training system and train freestyle year-round and have a complete commitment from everybody in the country, then it's not going to work. I mean, our system's working because guys are making money and they're taking care of their families, but we ain't winning. Like the last 3 years, we've been like 7th, 9th, and 7th, which with all the resources we have in the sport is completely unacceptable.
It's amazing too, because some people and the number gets thrown around. I know there's 270,000 high school wrestlers, and a lot of people, I've heard a round number of 1 million participants in this country, wrestlers at one time when you combine the youth and everything. And Russia has 50,000. All of Russia.
That's crazy. Well, you know what they do is they take their resources and they spend it on the guys that they know are capable of winning and that they know are serious about the sport. Like, there are a lot of guys, and I don't want to, ruffle any feathers, but that are just hanging on because they don't have anything else that they necessarily are passionate about.
I agree.
And
That's
so,
why.
No, I think you're right, Jordan. I mean, there's money in wrestling now. These guys can make a living. They're not, they're not sleeping on a buddy's couch or anything like that. But it's a modest living. But I think what you're getting to, and I agree, is that, when you graduate from college and you're this heralded, collegiate stud winning NCAA titles or whatever it might be, and you kind of turn into an, oh, by the way, an augmentation to the college program where, you're just a vehicle to promote the program. And
yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't mean,
like,
it doesn't make,
scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type of situation.
Right. Hey, come shake some hands and kiss some babies. Say hi to this 18-year-old recruit while he's here. But you're not the focus. And Ben, I know you've got a lot of thoughts on that. I don't want to steal.
I mean, I think it's a financial issue, right? How are you gonna have a centralized system without having funding for that? And that the reason guys stay at colleges is because their colleges are paying them, and most of these guys they're not really making money wrestling. They're getting paid to coach, right. And they're not. They might win a few.
Which
prize
a lot
bucks.
of people don't want to do. Like, a lot of the young assistant, like, it's impossible, not difficult. It's impossible to be the best wrestler in the world and coach at the same time, or at least give 100% to the both of them. It's extremely difficult. There's too much time constraints from each of the two, where you need to be particularly focused on getting better at each of them. You can't give 100% to the both. And so a lot of guys are coaching just to make money, but that's taken away from their wrestling ability.
Yep.
And so that's the difficulty that we have, is like, that's the only problem that we can identify, though, is the money. Where do we get the money? How do we find the funding? So we found funding to support USA Wrestling for this long a period of time. It's like we have a team leader every 4 years. There's another guy who rolls around who loves the sport and who has done really well financially. And so if we have a system in place that we potentially, create a presentation that people think is really cool and that has the opportunity to be successful, and we make it happen, I can't see anyone not backing us financially. I think it really is absolutely necessary for us to create if we want to regain our place atop the world. Or not, we can just keep having guys making 25, 30 grand a year and keep taking 7th place at Worlds.
Yeah, and so, I mean, the other thing about that, and I don't know how Russia or the other countries do it, but I mean, that training system where you're the number one, and say let's say it's a year ago, and Dake and Taylor and they're all training in the same room. How does that work together? I mean, did you have any idea how it works together in other systems, or they just say, I guess I'm the number 2, I'm the number 3, so what? Or they don't care?
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. That's an interesting concept.
Because as competitive as you are, as much as you want to say I'm okay with Dake and Taylor, it's going to get heated when it gets heated, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a method to doing it properly. If people are committed to being at this centralized training facility, then we take them. There's going to be no type of favoritism or specializing in who we cater to. Like, if you want to be the best, you train here. I remember Tommy, there was a particular time at Ohio State where there was Reese Humphrey, Logan Stieber, and Sean Bunch all training in the same facility. They were all successful because iron sharpened iron. Like, it really didn't matter who was wrestling who. They just knew that they were getting better because they were wrestling some of the best guys in the country. And so it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary. And you really got to take your pride and your anxiety and your fear of being figured out off the line and put yourself in uncomfortable situations if you want to be better.
Definitely. So I think that actually... Okay, go ahead, Tommy.
Jordan, do you think, in saying this, it's kind of a segue in one of the things we wanted to talk about, but do you think, in your opinion, and this is 100,000 feet in the air, okay? We're not talking about execution tomorrow of this concept, But do you think that there's merit to the American wrestling system adopting international rules at the youth level, high school level, and collegiate level? And if you do think that, do you think it's realistic to implement?
Absolutely. I think it's possible. The question is, I don't think folk style is so popular in this country because of its ruling system. Like, no one gets excited to see folk style just because it's such a cool sport. Like, wrestling is wrestling. If folk style changed to freestyle tomorrow, the NCAA championships will still have over 100,000 people frequenting over the weekend in Madison Square Garden.
Tommy said that. I think Tommy said that exact sentence word for word. I think it was word for word, that exact sentence this morning.
Ben, I have not verbally spoken to Jordan for years, so I got to tell you, we did not talk, but Jordan.
Yeah, we think alike, dude.
I think that was literally word for word. I think Tommy said, if it was freestyle at Madison Square Garden this weekend, the NCAAs would still have 100, whatever.
Nobody would drop a program. Every high school would still maintain wrestling. All the kids would still come to practice. You'd have some old school guys and some new school guys really, really disgruntled, and we'd be disappointing ourselves, so to speak, for a couple of years. But then everybody would get over it. The gyms would still be filled. Everyone would still have jobs. The programs, the collegiate institutions would still be supporting our sport, and we'd be a lot better off globally. And I think that we would produce heroes. We'd produce more Jordan Burroughs exponentially, and the sport could grow from there.
Absolutely, because people will be more interested. A lot of guys are like, I don't really want to wrestle after college. It's too big of a transition. But if you've been doing it your entire life, like, it'd be the necessary progression, the next step. Like, you'd be like, I'm going. I think the difficulty between the two, people get lost because, like, there's so few spots. I mean, you look at the NFL right now, there are, 32 teams? And so you got room for heroes on every single program. But on our international senior level system, like, there are only 6 spots. And no one really cares about 2 and 3 because they're wrestling half of the year in some foreign country with a terrible feed that no one gets to watch at 4 a.m.
Hell, Jimmy's over Stieber's still not online.
Right. So it's crazy, dude. And so you think about if the NFL took all 32 teams and condensed them down to 6. And so now you only have 6 quarterbacks in the league instead of 32. You only have 6 running backs, 6 wide receivers. And so the game changes. There will be a lot of people who are superstars now who get lost in the mix because there's someone just a little bit better who's a starter, someone just a little bit better who people recognize because they're on TV and they're winning these events and they're on Full Wrestling's homepage. And so that's the difficulty, man. It's hard, though. Like, what do you do? Like, we've identified the problem, but what do? You just kind of grumble about it and hope that it gets better, like by osmosis.
Well, I think our wrestling community domestically and globally, but domestically, is pretty fragmented. And I think that if we could all ever get on the same page, which I've never really seen, there's a lot of great people in the sport. We all know that, but it would be cool to really do something like that. It's so crazy. People would just, they just don't even consider it as an option. But what if it just happened? And I mean, in 5 years, I think our Olympic performance would be completely different. Ben, what do you think, man? You're a folk style scramble holic. Yeah. What's your thought?
Freestyle.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I was more of a freestyle guy growing up, and I mean, my high school coach loved it so much that when high school was over, we wrestled freestyle till November again, right? Until folk style started again. So we wrestled like March to November freestyle. And the rule changes really turned me off pretty hardcore. When there were so many of them there in the mid-2000s, it was really rough. As a competitor and as a fan trying to watch it. That being said, I love folk style, so I have a hard time giving it up, but I also have a hard time coming up with a good argument to someone who says we should do freestyle in America. I don't have a good argument against it, except I love folk style and I want to keep wrestling folk style. That's my only argument. So, like when you guys say it, I'm like, I love folk style. I really don't want it to go away.
No doubt.
But I don't really have a good argument why it should stay.
I would really miss riding time. Where you hook the ankle.
That's why you're
right for 3 minutes.
Drop down and all that cool stuff. Guys kicking out down so they won't get taken down. All that good stuff.
Oh my God! Hey Jordan, how many takedowns did you have in college? Do you know that stat offhand?
I had a lot. I don't think as much as Tommy. I think Tommy had something ridiculous. My senior year though, in 19 duels,
Okay.
I had 132 takedowns, and I gave up 0.
Oh, can you beat that, Tommy?
Duels. 132 and 0.
I can't beat that. No, I can't beat that. That's not happening.
700 career though, or something.
Yeah, 705 in the career. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, that's a lot, dude. That's a lot, man. I don't know if I could surpass that. That's crazy for a heavyweight, especially.
So,
well, I couldn't ride. I didn't know how to do the stall ride, so I had to let
heavyweight. You just roll them over and pin them. It's the mask. They can't get the mask off them. It's so easy. I can't believe Gwiz can't figure it out either. He couldn't even pin the Missouri guy. It's beyond me. Gwiz can't pin anybody. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's hard to pin, dude. I had.
Oh, come on.
10 pins. I had 10 pins. In
oh, come
Your
on.
whole career?
My whole entire career.
No. Oh, you guys.
How many did you get? A lot of back points?
I had a lot of tech falls. I couldn't turn. I could ride guys. I couldn't turn them. I just slap a deep tight waist on them and just put my belly on them. But I couldn't turn them. I wasn't a master on top like Ben. Ben was. Everyone was scared of Ben though. You pinned half of the people you wrestled because they were so scared. They were just please pin me.
Well, that was the trick, right? That was the trick.
They wanted to be part of history.
That's half the deal. I really, I can't figure out a David Taylor and Ed Ruth. How did they not pin more people? I don't know. I mean, it's maybe it's right. I scared people, but for me, it's you just lock up a cradle or a half or a bar.
I think you
turn
got
them over.
I think you probably have some backwoods Wisconsin hillbilly strength that only people that have wrestled you know about.
That's possible.
You do. You absolutely. I've never wrestled you, Ben, but I hear you're pretty strong.
Well. I guess that's the trick to pinning people. Let's go one more question for Jordan, and then we'll let you get on your way because I know how busy you are.
Absolutely.
What do you think? And I kind of brought it up when I was talking about the rule changes. And I talked to Tommy about this morning. Is they're not even minor. I mean, changing a 1-point takedown to a 2-point takedown when the turns are worth 2 points changes the whole dynamic of the match, right? I mean, completely changes the way the match should be wrestled or can be wrestled when you're talking about defensive dumps and all that stuff. So as far as the rule changes, I'm always scared that the UWW is going to make this big rule change. Are you just whatever happens, I'm going to smash everybody? Are you why doesn't UWW get their crap together? What's your whole stance or whole feeling on that?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good question. It's funny is I was actually just watching a couple of old wrestling matches. Well, some of mine from 11 and 12 a couple of nights ago. The leg clinch was the stupidest rule I've ever seen. The other guy didn't even have a shot. You literally have absolutely
this is unbelievable.
No shot.
And it was a terrible rule, but that's the difficult thing, and I think that's why America is reluctant to change the freestyle because it's what do we do? Do we follow UWW and say, okay, well, we're going to align with these guys and whatever their ruling system is, our ruling system is.
Yeah.
We create an offshoot, something that's a little more stable, a lot less hostile in terms of the frequency of the rule changes. But, I mean, it hasn't changed so drastically that I think it's difficult for people to win. There's no one who was extremely successful before the rule change that hasn't been able to transition well into the new rules. I think it's a little more
vice versa, right?
Yeah, and vice versa. I mean, it's wrestling's wrestling. You can get a takedown at any point in the match. I think these rules play a little bit more into the American based training system. We're well conditioned. We're in good shape. We press the pace. We take a lot of risk. We take a lot of shots. And so we like the cumulative score. It's not really a nickel and dime match anymore. You can't really get snaked at the end of the period. Guys don't stall for the entire 2 minutes and go to the clinch. So you've really got to wrestle. If the initiative's on you, the aggressor usually wins. And I appreciate that. I don't like that feeling matches from guys.
And that's, I mean, with the new rules, like you said, are definitely more American-centric, if you'll use that terminology, than they ever were before. And they're probably better than they have been, maybe ever, at least in my memory. I said better rules on picking who's a better wrestler. I mean, would you in my presidency for the UWW president? I don't know if you listen to our shows. I suggested that we freeze the rules for like 10 years. What do you got? Support that? Hate that? What do you think?
That's a long time, dude. I don't know. 10 years is a long time. I think this rule system do you have any complaints with this ruling system right now?
I really don't. My personally, I don't have any problems with the rules at all. I graduated from college. They started the clinch. I retired. They ended it. So I was a participant in the dark ages of our rules, and I'm so envious of what we have now. There's a small rule that I hate, but I think
what do you hate?
I hate that when it's tied, you don't go to overtime.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I'd go to overtime.
But that's just compared to what we had. I almost feel bad even bringing it up, because it's just nothing compared to pulling a ball out of a bag to grab a leg. But Jordan, that's probably the only beef I have, and I don't like the fact that we don't seed at the world events.
Oh, don't get unbalanced, unseeded brackets.
And I'd like to hear
drive me up a wall.
Jordan, I feel like you have the intellectual capital. I feel like he's got the intellectual ability. What is your thought? I think I know your thought as an athlete, which is put anyone in front of me, I'm going to beat them. But what is your thought as a fan or a consumer of the sport when we don't seed the biggest event in the world?
It needs to be seeded, dude. It's ridiculous.
Idiotic.
I've had two examples. So at the Pan Am Games last year, I wrestled in Toronto at 74 kilos. And so the only two medalists, really the only two guys who had been on the world or Olympic stage were myself and Levan Lopez from Cuba at 74 kilos. And we had a bracket of maybe like 12 or 13 guys. And so with the 12 or 13 guys in the bracket, we're the only two medalists, only two proven wrestlers. We had each other the very first match. And so I'm like, this is crazy to me. This is crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Even at the World Championships this past year, I had to wrestle the number 2 ranked guy in the world in the semifinal. And
you had the worst draw out of anybody in the tournament. Now you're the best guy, but you still had the worst draw.
And then on top side, it's like Mongolia versus India, and those guys were like number 9 versus like number 16, and on the bottom side is number 1 versus number 2. Like, that's crazy. And so it's like anticlimactic for the fans because they want to see the best guys compete in the finals. Imagine that semifinal was a final. It would have been super exciting. But then secondarily, you don't give a lot of guys an opportunity to do great things. And that's what scares me going into this Pan Am Games qualifier for the Olympics. Like, Cuba didn't have a good world championship.
Yeah.
And so now with a completely random draw, imagine if Bonet and Ramos are on the same side of the bracket, or Salas and Herbert are on the same side of the bracket. And it's a tournament where the only qualifiers are top 2. And so that stings, dude. Like, that's absolutely silly because it's either us or them.
Mm-hmm.
And not saying that our guys aren't capable of beating them. I think they are, absolutely. But in the same token, that's a very difficult matchup. And I think it's completely unnecessary to, I love Pan American countries, but, is it fair that Ecuador gets a shot over, a world silver medalist in Herbert? It's crazy. It's crazy to me. I don't even know exactly how they can look at this rule constantly and say, you know what, we're good. We're going to keep this in place. We're going to move forward with this next year. This thing is a strong rule. And so it's wild because I think at one point they were thinking about separating the countries. So they do the top 2 countries from that past year's World Championships. But, with the ruling system in place now, it doesn't matter. So, essentially, what would they do? Separate me and Mongolia next year, and I still have Russia in the semifinals? It's stupid, dude. It needs to make a change.
That's great. I'm glad you feel that way.
Cool. Well, you got anything else for us? This has been fun.
No, man, I'm good. I'm going to wrestle at the Pan Am Championships this weekend.
And Flo's covering it live, correct?
Yeah, Flo's covering it. So anyone listening to this, make sure you check us out. We're wrestling Saturday, February 27th down in Frisco, Texas at the Pan Am Championships. We got a really solid team.
And if you're in Texas, show up and cheer them on.
That's right.
And if we're in the area, it's like 20 minutes or 20 miles from Dallas. So, yeah, come check us out, man. It'll be fun. I'm excited, getting prepared for the Olympic trials and ready for a great year, trying to replicate 2012 just with a little bit more dominance.
Awesome.
That's awesome, man. Hey, thanks so much for coming on, Jordan. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, thanks, Jordan.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
All right, take it easy, boys.
See ya. Well, that was fun, Tommy.
That was awesome, man. He's I didn't want to say it while he's on the podcast because it's like it seems like everyone does it, but he's the man, isn't he? It's just like you don't want to be that guy, but I mean, he's the man.
Well, I was going to talk about that. Last year when the unseeded, unbalanced brackets, which are just about the stupidest thing you ever. But I remember looking at his bracket and being like, shit, everybody good's on bottom. But then it's like, for him, it's like, oh well, he's going to beat everybody anyways. It doesn't freaking matter,
Right.
Where some of these other brackets are like, how did all the good guys get on the bottom?
I didn't get to dive into it, but when he did graduate, and he was a stud, but he was a college stud. You know what I mean? He was an animal.
100%.
I remember that Twitter account, All I See Is Gold. And I remember I wasn't judging him. I wasn't saying this guy's a punk. I really was honestly saying, does he know what he is saying when he's Babe Ruth calling his shot at home plate? And because that's how it felt as a guy.
I mean, I had the same experience, Tommy. I won 2 Hodges, came out, didn't make the team 1 year, and then took 7th. Like,
right.
For
so
sake.
It's just like, hey, I've been wrestling. I've traveled overseas at that time over 30 times, wrestled at the World Championships, Pan Ams, paid the price, done all these things. And this guy's calling his shot from left field as if winning a gold medal is like, you can do it walking out of bed. And I don't think it was arrogance. I think to his point that he made, the guy believed. I mean, he knew. He knew he had it in him. And gosh, has he proven all of us that's. And I've seen a column about him when he first got on the scene compared to now, and he's just a different guy right now. He's just so much more cerebral and intelligent about pursuing his goals. It's really impressive to see how he's come along. So
agreed. Let's get on his NWC because I'm on fire. I'm ready.
I love it.
I'd like hold my tongue for this whole damn Burroughs interview because I always want to talk about the NWCA.
All right, let's do it, man. Plenty of stuff to talk about.
God, okay. Listen, so I got this. You saw I typed this up. I got this. I got it kind of figured out. So I'm going to kind of run with it, and you just stop me where you want to stop me. Is that fair?
It's fair, man. I mean, I don't know what you're going to say. You kind of told me a little bit, but I think I'm going to agree with you sometimes and disagree with you sometimes.
So first of all, we've been talking about this for, say, 6 weeks, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, man.
And we've been saying the top 8, right? The top 8 non-Big Ten wrestle the top 8 Big Ten, and they match them up, and then they go, right? Well, now all of a sudden in the last week or so, there's this conference component, which I never realized that. I don't think you ever realized that. So and that's how Edinburgh gets in, right? And that's how App State gets in because they weren't in the top 8 outside the Big Ten, but I guess they win their conference, so they get in. Which that's a failure of the NWCA right there. That you got to have the procedure out there and clear for everyone because we've been talking about this for 6 weeks. We didn't know that stuff.
No.
So what it comes down to is Virginia Tech beats NC State the last weekend of the season. To win the ACC championship. So I guess so then what it becomes is Virginia Tech is a conference champion, and NC State, although they're 22-1, becomes a wild card, right? So Oklahoma State gets this match against Penn State, which I think you could very fairly debate that NC State should have gotten it. Anyway, so then NC State gets Iowa. And then Virginia Tech says, "Whoa! We're the ACC conference champion. We just beat North Carolina State. We should get the Iowa match." And allegedly, so this is alleged. So I don't know what exact conversations went on. And Tom Ryan has since denied this, but Kevin Dresser comes out and says we were supposed to get the Iowa match, but Iowa said they don't want to wrestle us, so it's not going to happen. And to me, if that's what happened, and I got to believe there's at least a little bit of truth to it because. I mean, unless Kevin Dresser just made this up out of thin air, which would make him totally insane, there's got to be something there.
It really would make him totally insane.
Totally insane. Like, did he just make this up for freaking media purposes? Like, It had to come from somewhere, right? I mean, something had to happen there. Whether it was as clear as what he said or whether it was kind of like, we don't want to wrestle him or something happened. So Kevin Dresser gets crazy, goes off. And they get sent to Michigan. And then allegedly Coach Smith, my college coach, says they don't want to wrestle in Michigan, so they go to Nebraska. So what you essentially have here is coaches calling their shots, right? And another big part about this is Oklahoma and Cornell, who, right now Oklahoma is the 5th non-Big Ten team rankings-wise. And so they very clearly should have had a duel. But Mark Cody's the sitting NWC president, and he says he doesn't want to participate. Like, this is your freaking event.
Yeah.
And you're trying to say it means something, and you're not participating? You know what this felt like to me, Tommy? I felt like the kid who loses by an upset, ends up in the wrestleback and says, I don't want to wrestle, I'm taking my crap and I'm going home.
Well,
that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, it's bad. And, you could take a number of approaches to this. And, I feel like when two really passionate, smart people get into a heated argument, which is what we have with Kevin Dresser and Tom Brands, Tom Ryan, whoever it is, it just seems like there's like a 6-way battle. Usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. Neither person's point is 100% accurate because they become so impassioned by their position that the truth is clouded for them. And I think the truth is in the middle of all this, which makes it sound even more vague. But I think the problem, Ben, and I think it's always been the problem, and I don't have an answer, but I do know the problem. I feel like the inmates are running the asylum. And I don't mean that derogatorily against our country's best wrestling coaches. But, you look at every other governing body, collegiate football, collegiate basketball, professional football, professional basketball, professional baseball. The athlete, it is not a coach-run league. It's not an athlete-run league. Yes, there's prima donnas. Yes, there's people that have opinions. Yes, they voice their opinions. They are influential people. But at the end of the day, Roger Goodell and the front office at the NFL run the National Football League. And the coaches' opinions are just that, they're opinions. And right now what we have is we have all these coaches who, not to reflect back from our episode a few weeks ago, but they are inherently biased.
Yep.
They're inherently biased
to what's best for their team or what they think is best for their team.
They can't. I mean, I know how much they care. I know how much Cael Sanderson cares. I know how much Tom Ryan cares. The names go on. I know how much they care. These guys love wrestling as much as anybody on the planet, but they can't think about what's best for the sport and what's best for Penn State or Ohio at the same time. You can't do it simultaneously. In my opinion, it's very difficult to do. So the water's gonna get muddied when we get into this. You know what I mean? And it's gonna get crazy like it did last week.
So what you need is an independent third party to run it. And at the beginning of the season or before, probably ideally before the season,
let me interrupt you, Ben, and then I'll let you rant.
Sure.
You need an independent third party that these guys want to follow, and they don't follow just anybody.
Yeah.
Tom Brands and they aren't following just anybody.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that is a true challenge because these are some hard-headed, highly successful, very passionate, competitive mamma jammas. And they aren't just gonna get in line and follow.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I think what you do is you put the language in the contract so that there's a penalty for declining the invitation, right? Here's the rules. Here's what we're gonna do. Top 8, non-top 8. Here's where they're going to wrestle, like a bout contract, right? I just signed a bout contract yesterday. It says, here's the date, here's the weight, here's your opponent, here's your location, here's what you're going to get paid, show up, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And so you sign like a contract, right? And it says, if you want to withdraw, you get this penalty, right? So they're facing some kind of stiff penalty if they want to withdraw because they got their feelings hurt and they didn't get the pick they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you got to have a little common sense. Maybe finagle the teams around if something makes more sense. I get that, but to totally have the coaches calling the shots is just—it's ridiculous. I mean, you said it. It's ridiculous.
And even if that's not true, that's the impression the wrestling community gets. If you took a poll and you said who's running this event, you would say the best coaches in America are running this event.
That is who's running it for a fact. It's the NWCA, which is the National Wrestling College Association.
Right. I guess what
Coaches,
I meant was,
colleges,
in midstream, they're running it in midstream.
Oh, yeah.
So that's, I guess that's what the point I was making, but yeah, I'm with you, man. I mean, it's, I hate complaining about something without an answer. So, I mean, I think it's Bush League, but as a guy, I mean, I guess I just don't have enough time to follow all the details, but that's just my vantage point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. So, we're not happy with it. It's probably the best it's been. They got a great idea, but they got to tighten down the hatches a little bit. Got to tighten it
down. Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into these matches. I'm going to kind of talk about the important ones. We're not going to talk about all of them. Missouri beats Nebraska. I thought that was a good one.
Why was that an important one, Ben?
Well, because Missouri's ranked 6th, and because they're my alma mater.
Okay. Let's talk about the second most important one. Ohio State.
Well, you got to go third, right? Virginia Tech beats Michigan. That's a pretty good one.
Heck, I think the highlight was the top two ACC teams beat the number
2 and 3
Big Ten teams.
Yeah. It's a big deal. ACC. Iowa would be third place in the ACC? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
You find a way to really make your words polarizing.
Iowa, third place? Are you kidding me? Okay, so Virginia Tech beats Michigan. There were some really good matches. Joey Dance won in overtime in that one, and Dominic Abenator won in overtime against Zach Sabatsky. So that was a fun one. Then let's talk about Iowa-NC State last, because that was actually the most fun and competitive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Penn State-Oklahoma State. John Smith doesn't bring the starters at 57 and 74.
What do you think of that?
Well, Crutchmer's hurt, I guess. I don't know the extent of his injury, but then obviously you heard about Chandler Rogers. He upset Ethan Ramos, who's the number one guy in the country on Friday, and he had his dad pass away on Saturday, so he had to attend to that. So I guess you got to understand that situation. There's no way not to. Joe Smith, I don't know how injured his son is. I have no idea, so it's hard to say in that situation. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't look good for that this is the national championship and you're not showing up with your number one team. I mean, from the coach's standpoint, that doesn't look good.
Right.
But that match, honestly, I watched it. There wasn't really a competitive match throughout the whole duel. There wasn't. I mean, there just wasn't one match where it was like, wow, this one's tight, this one's exciting.
Yeah, it was just. It's 29-18.
It was one way or the other.
Team score wasn't bad, but yeah, it was lopsided one side or the other. You had Gulabon gave Dean Heil all he wanted. That was cool.
I don't see it that way.
I didn't watch it, so
okay.
I guess I'm a headline reader on that.
No, you know what? But that's what a lot of people are saying, Tommy. And because Gulabon was very active and he was very aggressive, and while he did come close to scoring a time or two, I kind of see it as like that's what Gulabon does, right? Against Micah Jordan, he came close to scoring but didn't score and then got scored on.
Right.
So he had a couple. He was aggressive. He pushed the action. But every time they were in a scramble, Dean Heil came out on top. Every single time. I mean, without fail. Actually, let's bring up that Dean Heil lost on Friday night to Joey Ward, which, I think we called that one because we said when you wrestle as many close matches as Dean Heil, you're going to lose one. So he loses Joey Ward, but he beats up. I thought he beat Gulabon fairly easily. Just my take on it.
Okay.
So then Monday night, which why is the second duel wrestled after the championship duel? The championship duel should be wrestled as the finale to everything. But nevertheless, Iowa versus NC State is Monday night. And Tommy, you know what? I said Iowa was going to win, but when I look at it, I said NC State's going to win Jack, Gant, Rajkov, and Gwiz, right?
Right.
I said that. And then in our pick'ems, I picked Renda to win.
You did.
Which he did. So, theoretically, I was saying, without saying, that NC State's going to win the match. So I'm going to take credit for calling that one.
So, ironically, my dad was in Iowa on business, and
really?
he was in the arena. He went to watch it, and he was very complimentary of the NC State guys that lost. He said for an ACC team that even though they're having a great season, they don't have this 20-year history. He goes, the way that they fought for their team was very impressive. And I thought that was a unique perspective because you want to talk about the guys that won, but Iowa knows how to really throw it on people.
Yeah.
They will bury you in Carver Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm.
And this Wolfpack mentality goes in there, and they're scrapping every match, even in the matches where they're inevitably going to lose. He just said they were tooth and nail scrapping.
Yeah.
And that was the first comment he made to me, not Gwiz is awesome or who's this Gant guy or I like Jack. It was the guys that lost, which I thought was an interesting comment, from someone who's in the arena.
Yeah, and I kind of talked about that aspect a little bit ago when I went and visited. I said they had the same feel as that we had at Missouri when we hadn't done something special, but we felt like we were on the verge of it.
Right.
And everyone's bought in.
And you really felt like you were blazing a trail.
Yes, 100%. And you know what? I'm getting this feeling like I get goosebumps all the time when I'm watching this Minnesota Keepers of the Flame. Have you seen this yet?
I've seen both episodes.
Okay.
I love these documentaries.
It's freaking awesome, isn't it?
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
Awesome. Yeah.
But that's the feel I think that NC State has right now is this Minnesota team, and they're talking about they're coming up. They want to be the national champs, and but they haven't really done anything yet.
And you look at these
right?
unsung, and we all know the finish to the story. And you look at, I wouldn't call Tim Hartung and Chad Kraft an unsung hero, but at the same time, they didn't get it done, but they blazed the trail for the guys that did. And you think maybe this Tommy Gant or this what's Jack's first name? Kevin Jack, or certainly Gwiz. They're probably not going to win the title this year. They might. But, I'm saying probably not. But these are the guys that, 6, 7, 8 years from now, if they ever get it done, you've got to say, well, we're standing on their shoulders right now. So I do get the chills thinking about that stuff for sure.
And it's even more like this, say a Max Rajkop, who is never even close to winning an Ohio State title, or some of these other guys they have that are just kind of stepping up,
right?
But have never really been anything. And it's that power of the program right now these guys are wrestling out of their minds. I mean, it's
a team. I mean, it's a real team. You know what I mean? And that's cool to see, especially with an ACC program. And then Pat Papalizio, he's 35, 36 years old, and he's the new guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that, what? Honestly, Penn State kind of has that same feel still right now, even though they've won a few titles. I know they didn't win last year, but man, that's how Nolf and really their whole lineup top and down, but Nolf and Rutherford really personify that intensity, that hunger for just domination, just going out there and kicking butt and taking names.
They just want to put points on the board. They're not out there to try to crush your soul, and
they've been crushing some souls. You see these dudes?
They have been, but they're just not there to. I think I have a group text of some buddies. Mitch Clark's on it, Johnny Clark, Blake Kaplan, Casey Kaputska, guys that wrestled in the Big Ten, and we were saying that I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about, Ben?
You talk about what Penn State does special.
They
don't crush souls; they score points. But I think they've crushed some souls. I mean,
it's just not their intention is to just win, but they've been. What my point was on the text, I said Penn State's been the most exciting wrestling team to watch the past 6 years, and that's tough to say coming from a Buckeye. As biased as I am, it's hard for me to admit that they're not the most exciting team.
Yeah, and I'm going to get into this. I told you before we got on the podcast, I wrote this article on which team peaks the best, and I had this list. I wrote it
next week, brother.
Well, I'm gonna intro it, and I'm gonna bring it back up. But
we can't take all the good content and put it in one night,
Of course. So I did it 2 years ago. I redid it last year. I just did the standings from last year. So I take what their seed is versus how they place, right? And a lot of that I think has to do with what kind of mood the team is, right? What kind of feeling there is, what kind of belief is there in the program. And
at the end of the year, or just generally speaking?
Well, it all builds up. I mean, I know from when I was at Missouri, it was like a snowball for us,
right?
And that's kind of like what I think. It's once you, especially with these newer programs, but I feel like Penn State has this feeling going on too now, because I mean they are starting a lot of freshmen. But once you start, you kind of believe, right? But you haven't done it yet, and then you start winning some of these little battles, and you start believing more. And then you win some bigger battles, and then you believe more. Think about how hard NC State guys believe in their program. They beat Oklahoma State this year. They beat Minnesota. They beat Iowa. They beat Missouri, right?
Incredible.
And so this belief just kind of snowballs. And then when you hit the NCAAs, you're just ready to scrap. I mean, you're not thinking about anything. You're not worried about anything. You just want to wrestle. And I think, not to get too deep into it, but I think, you'll see next week who performs, who doesn't perform, and you can kind of, at least as a very vigilant observer, I can see which of these teams kind of had that feel and how they performed according to that.
I think it's a really interesting conversation. I can't wait to dive into the details next week because, it's so fun to talk about people that rise to the occasion when it matters the most. And people, teams, whatever it might be. And there's so many dynamics, Ben, that go into performing when it counts. And boy, does it ever count in March. And so I'm excited. I think the whole episode should be, stepping up in the moment of truth. The whole episode should be about getting it done at the end of the year. We've got high school kids all across the country chasing down their dreams as, state championships and stuff. So it's just a great topic to kind of dive into the details.
100%. So let's hit. We're getting long now. I think we're going past the hour mark.
We're at an hour.
Whatever. That's great.
But with Burroughs on there, I mean, you don't cut him off, obviously,
no.
And there's so much news to talk about. So
of course. So let's talk about these pick'ems.
Oh, jeez, here we go.
And then I don't think we can do any this week. I thought about asking you which one to do, but there's not really any big Division I matches. There's no Division I matches. So
what we should do is we should pick conference champions going into the conference championships next week.
Okay, so we can do that next week. Yeah, we can do that. So I beat you again this week, Tommy. Just FYI. Avery versus Quartz did not happen. There was no match there, so no winner. Mays versus Soufflon went to double overtime. You picked Mays, I picked Soufflon. He won it. Renda versus Brooks. We talked about that one. I took Renda, you took Brooks. And then you beat me on Walls versus Kuhn. So I got 2 that week. You got 1.
Okay, so what's our score up to now?
So then that makes the score 5-3 over the first 2 weeks.
And so I think we should do conference champions in the Big Ten. What other conference do we want to pick? You want to pick the ACC?
Or we could do the MAC that has
we do the MAC
Missouri in it.
Yeah, we'll do the MAC and the Big Ten. Or we can do all of them, but that'd be a lot. But
sure.
Let's do the MAC and Big Ten. That's 20 picks.
Sure, that's a lot of picks. That sounds like fun to me.
And it's not one or the other. It's you got to pick a guy.
Yeah, of course. Okay. And our guest next week is going to be none other than Hodge Trophy frontrunner. Maybe not frontrunner. I think he's the frontrunner.
He is a frontrunner.
A contender. Yeah. Alex Dieringer. So he's going to be on with us. He's actually from Wisconsin, Tommy.
Do you think he has the backwoods hillbilly strength?
I've actually heard Chris Perry told me that Alex Dieringer is the strongest person he's ever wrestled with. So maybe there's something. Come test the water or something.
We should get that Neil deGrasse Tyson, the famous physicist that wrestled at Harvard.
The double tidal wave lock or whatever the hell he was talking about.
We should get him on the show and see if he can explain to us what it means to have hillbilly, like that corn-fed strength. We've all grabbed them. And I think you got that. I watched you on that video crush 2 watermelons at the same time. You're not built like a guy that can do that, Ben.
Listen,
but you do it anyway.
You know what your mom told you when you were 6, Tommy? You don't judge a book by the cover. Actually, one of my coaches, Sean Charles, he gave me some good advice. He said, Ben, when you're watching international film, if it looks like the guy sucks and you're wondering how he's good, he's really, really effing strong. Because I'm watching some of these films, I'm like, this guy plays for the world, but he sure looks like a bum.
Listen.
And he's like, listen, I've been overseas a lot. If the guy looks like he sucks, but he's a world placer, he's just really insanely strong.
I lost to a guy that duct taped his ankles with duct tape, not athletic tape.
Shut up.
Oh yeah, the dude was good, man. You know what it's like over there with those Russians.
When they do the cold spray, oh god, the cold spray.
They walk out there with singlets that don't fit them. Uh-huh. They're all like loose and baggy around their thighs, and then they go out there and hit like 17 fireman's carries. It's like an out of body experience when you go to Russia sometimes, not because of how good they are. They're good, don't get me wrong, but like it's like bizarre. It's almost kind of like dreamy when you're running around these mats. It's like 26 degrees. There's no heat in the room. Like the mats are all crinkled up. The canvas is all crinkled up. It's like worse than it's worse than like a really rough rug from the 1960s and stuff. And you're wrestling dudes that are better than anybody in America. You know, it's just so bizarre to go over there. Seriously. Anyways, we should have an episode about that too.
Oh man, I mean, we need to get one of those old timers to tell some real stories. I've heard some good ones. Okay, well, we'll wrap it for tonight, Tommy.
All right, brother, I'm in. I mean, it was a good episode. I thought that was probably one of my favorites.
Nice, yeah, Jordan was fun. All right, well, thank you, Defense Soap, again, for making this possible, making this free for all our listeners. You guys stop by. They got great products. Defense Soap, defend what you have built. Have a great night, Tommy, and we will talk next week.
Thank you, my brother.